they ever play in. There's no doubt. So I wanted to see that happen. But it was a very good game. And there was one standout individual again in this match. He's just proving... I will say Mo Salah is proving so many people wrong week in, week out. There's kind of no doubt about that whatsoever when it comes to him. And with Mo Salah now performing at such a consistent level for the past 4 to 5 years, from your point of view, KJ, like where does Mo Salah stack up at the moment in terms of best player in the league, right through to his kind of status in the Premier League overall?
Well, right now, currently, he is the best player in the league. Consistency is key. He has literally been Liverpool's best player, and he's been scoring or assisting nearly like every week. So he hasn't got enough time to surpass him. Like Ryan Giggs played football from such a young age, all the way up to the age of around 40. He won so many Premier Leagues. He won Champions League. He's won FA Cups, Carling Cups. He's won almost everything there is to win in football. It'd be very, very hard for me to sit here and say, just because Mo Salah has been consistent for 5 years, that he can now go and surpass Giggs, who has got a larger body of work and also defined generations as a world-class player. So for me, I don't think Mo Salah would ever do that just because Ryan Giggs' body of work is just too much.
Yeah, I hear you. When we have a super chat, here that says apparently Salah cannot be better than Hazard because he can't beat a man. What else will they say now? I've always felt just on that point about Salah. When people talk about Salah not being a good dribbler, it's like I was watching on Sky last night all of his goals in the Premier League. That goal he scored yesterday, I think is the 5th or 6th time he scored a goal almost identical to it in the Premier League. I remember Ginola scoring a very good dribbling. I've seen lots of good dribblers score good dribbling goals, but not as many as Mo Salah. Like it's another ridiculous take. But Dan, you were going to say something there about the Ryan Giggs thing, because as a talking point, I've seen a lot of Liverpool fans speaking about today. We put a tweet out, and a lot of Liverpool fans have responded to my tweet saying he's already surpassed Ryan Giggs. The numbers don't lie. He's already done better than Ryan Giggs as a wide player.
I think that's my issue though. Like, what are we actually saying? What does surpass mean? Because if we're talking about who's a better player, I think Salah is the better player. I mean, we're talking about someone who we're considering to be, I do, because we're talking about someone who we're saying could be the best player in the world right now on form. Like Giggs was never in that conversation. Giggs was a top quality player. Look, I'm not even trying to disrespect Giggs. I watched Giggs as well, his early years and his latter years. So there's no disrespect to Giggs at all. But I think what you need to remember is it depends on what we're talking about with surpassing. If we're talking about legacy and whatnot, what Giggs did for the Premier League, of course, it's difficult to surpass. That means no one will ever surpass Giggs, because I don't think anyone will ever be able to play as long as Giggs did. But I don't think longevity is enough of an argument to almost then say that no one else can do it. Game done, game set and match. I think when we're talking about a player like Salah, when we're talking about a player like Salah, let's just assume now this isn't the last year he plays with Liverpool. We can assume that he will still play to this level next year. I'm just making that assumption. Of course, it's a tough one to make, but that will be like 6-7 years of double-digit numbers again. I think he only has one season where he didn't score 20 goals in all comps for one. And then you look at the fact that who can take a team and get them a goal in a clutch moment, who can do something out of nothing. I think what you need to remember with Giggs is a lot of the qualities and a lot of the arguments that people put in Giggs as well, that fights his corner, is that he was able to change his game and adapt his game. But what we need to remember, again, when we're talking about better players, that's how I like to see things. Who was better at their peak? I don't think Giggs reached this level where Salah is on now, to the level where we're saying that he's as good as Messi and Ronaldo. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I understand that, but like you're asking Ryan Giggs to score 20 goals a season, like when that was not his job in the team. His job in the team wasn't to do what Mo Salah was doing. He wasn't inside forward. He was very. But no, you've been talking for a little bit now. Let me finish my point,
because it's going to be so relevant. It's going to be so relevant.
Yeah. If it's not relevant, man, I want to kick you out of the stream, bro. Like, please.
Yeah, you can. You might as well. Just be careful. Tread carefully when you say it wasn't his job in the team, because when Hazard gets mentioned, I will school you on that as well. Just be careful.
But go on, KJ. Go on, KJ.
But again, how is that relevant
because
to
I know
Ryan
what Man
Giggs.
United fans think
Yeah, but
about Hazard.
I'm not here to be arguing about Hazard or Salah. I'm here about Giggs and Salah, bro.
Yeah, go
For
on, go on.
Giggs, his role in the team wasn't to be an inside forward. It wasn't to be the guy to make the clutch moments every single week. He was the guy to help facilitate, provide, run down the week, put the ball in, and he did that. He did that time and time again. Consistently, he was one of the best players in the Premier League when he was in his peak. No one can say that he wasn't, because he's part of the teams that got the Premier League time and time again. Like, for me, I think Giggs is very disrespected, personally.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm trying to figure this out. So if we can't compare them really because they had different roles in the team, which essentially is saying that they have different types of positions, and why are we even comparing them? You know, then you should be comparing maybe Salah to strikers if that's his actual job, because really he's their striker, isn't he?
But
so we should be comparing
maybe that is the point. I think the conversation is there. I suppose one of the questions I would ask, and I want to go to Kobe with this, is it fair to compare left wingers or left midfielders and right midfielders from the 90s and early noughties with inside forwards of the modern day game? And that's a question that I think is worth posing to Kobe.
I think that's where the context is so important, in that the role of wingers has changed so much. I mean, you know, with Giggs, it's more about creativity. I think Salah's sort of got about 37 assists in the Premier League, and Giggs has got about 162. Although Salah's obviously played far fewer games, even if he keeps that rate up, he's probably not going to surpass Giggs. So it's almost like, in a way, and it's not a direct comparison, of course it's not, but it's almost like you need to compare Salah's goals more with Giggs' assists, because Giggs' highest goal scoring season in the Premier League was 11, whereas Salah's lowest is 19. And if you look to that out of context, you think, who on earth is this Ryan Giggs player? He's terrible. But that's not the case. We know that's not the case. So almost that big gap doesn't necessarily show us that Salah's 10 times the better player, but actually probably shows exactly why we should compare his goals and their assists, and just really shows how different their roles were. So yes, you can compare them, but you shouldn't necessarily use the same things to compare them with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of hear that. And I think that's sort of my view on it. And it's not about trying to protect Ryan Giggs. If you actually look throughout the whole of the 90s and noughties, the Giggs and the Pires era as wingers, no wingers were doing that. And there's a very interesting chapter in Gary Neville's book called Red, where he speaks about how he watched firsthand Cristiano Ronaldo change the position of a winger into an inside forward, the way he started scoring goals. He was just doing different things, and everybody has cottoned on since then. You know, if Ronaldo hadn't have created this role almost for himself, along with his coaching staff saying, well, what if I try this? What if I try that? It may not exist in the way in which that it does now. There were not inside forwards in the same way as there are now pretty much everywhere. No one plays as a winger in that regard. But it's interesting as well, though, what I would say about this is that, are we now saying that someone's peak surpasses somebody's consistency and longevity? Because if that's the case, then certain GOAT conversations need to be revisited, because we've had players like Ronaldo, whose peak in the Premier League was the best we've ever seen, Ballon d'Or winner. So that means he surpasses people that have done more on a consistent basis, if a peak means more than longevity and consistency. So I think that's where I would say I would defend Ryan Giggs as a footballer, is if we're going to say peaks, if Salah gets put in front of Giggs because his peak is better, then we have to use that exact same logic when we're doing any other player debate. So if you have a player this season who scores 50 Premier League goals, wins the Premier League and the Ballon d'Or, then you can argue he's the greatest ever Premier League football player because he's peak. Well, that's not. It's exactly the same thing. You can then argue that peak is better than anybody else's consistency because no one else has done it. And I would just want to ask for consistency when looking at it. I look at Mo Salah as someone that's moving towards the GOAT conversation, but I still think that's 4 or 5 years premature, because when you think about the people we consider Premier League GOATs and the greatest, you're looking at all of them have done an 8+ years of consistently performing at the world-class level. It's why I felt it was very disrespectful to start using Van Dijk's name next to John Terry's, Tony Adams, Sol Campbell's, Rio Ferdinand's, who did it, who performed at his level, and obviously defending was very different 20 years ago to it is now. So it's how we do it with goalkeepers. With goalkeepers, we don't say that. Do you know what? Petr Cech and David Seaman were actually crap goalkeepers because they can't use their feet like modern day goalkeepers. but yet we want to do it to Ryan Giggs when the wing position has changed. I just want consistency from fans, you know, because based on that logic again of roles changing, Petr Cech wasn't a good goalkeeper because he couldn't use his feet. So would you undo all of Petr Cech's achievements because he doesn't have the passing range of an Alisson or an Edison or a Mendy now?
No.
I don't think you would.
No,
but
we're not saying that.
What are you saying then?
I'm not saying that. I think where you're getting confused with where I stand on it is obviously it's a bit like what Kobe said in terms of what are we actually debating? What are we arguing? Like, what is the criteria for a great player, their peak, who has the better legacy? These are all different nuances that we need to actually define what we're saying. For example, look, you can say that Giggs was consistently great. I beg to differ. I think Giggs was great because of his longevity, but it was patchy. There were times he would have 2 very good seasons, but then he would have 1 bad season. Like there were moments, like check it, you can go through it again. Like there were times he would put together 2 nice top quality seasons. Obviously, you'd have to watch a lot of the games because Giggs could impact games without scoring or assisting. But then he would also then go a season where he was non-existent. I remember, I can't remember what season it was. I think it was the best. He had the best goal scoring season. I think that 13-goal season. Where he was quality, probably the best winger in the world. The season after, I think he played about 30 games and scored 1 goal. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, he was also voted though. Again, I'm not trying to be ageist here, but due to the age of yourself being 25, you didn't watch him in the early 90s. What year were you born? What year were you born? Like what year were you born?
That on the stream.
Well, yeah, but I'm going to hazard a guess that you were barely born when he won the treble. And if you look at and that was when he was in his like mid-20s. So I kind of feel like it's. Yes, as he got older, his quality dipped. It's interesting as well. There's a comment here. I think it's very relevant to the conversation. It says, in Giggs' day, there was a top 2. In Salah's day, you have a top 6. The league is more competitive now. Salah hands down. Be very careful with that logic. And I heard a lot of people say that to me yesterday, that the league is harder now. So if the league is harder now, and Mo Salah achieves what he does, it means he surpasses the Premier League goats like Henry because they were in the top 2 era. So be very careful when you put out these theories to elevate Mo Salah massively above Giggs. It means you're saying what Thierry Henry achieved is worth less now than it was then. Are we all willing to agree with that? I know the answer is going to be no, but I get a little confused by the disrespect personally. But
I think that's why it's difficult to do these because one, we don't have Salah's like full CV yet because he hasn't finished his career. So it's hard to compare somebody mid-career to somebody who had a very, very long one. And then the game changes. And just like you guys said, if positions change, it's very difficult to pin one up against another. Like, I feel like this argument is almost so much, it's almost like you have to just kind of throw it away because roles were different. And one had an extremely long career. And the other one, we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we don't even know how long Salah is going to be at Liverpool. We don't know how things will change. He's 29 now. He would have to be one of those types of players that does like a Zlatan or something like that and, be good for the next 7-8 years too. So I think it's a weird one, but things change so much that it's hard to really pin it down. And it feels almost
and one player started off his youth very, very explosively. He was very explosive. The other player had to leave the Premier League for a few years and come back. So Daniel's talking about patchy forms and Daniel's talking about those times where Ryan Giggs wasn't that good. No. But Mo Salah came to Chelsea and was not good. But now we automatically just erase that, like he never played in the Premier League and just focus on his time in Chelsea at Liverpool. If we're talking about Premier League, if we're talking about Premier League legacy, you have to look at every single time that player was in the Premier League. And Mo Salah at Chelsea was not great and had to go to Italy to get better. Because why did he not stay at Chelsea?
Okay, KJ. I get it.
Louis, I'm in your corner. He played 13 games for Chelsea, by the way.
But he hardly played for Chelsea. And whenever I've used stats to back up my Salah point, I have used his Chelsea stats, which are just important. They were a part of his Premier League. But I think if you ask any Chelsea fan, and he comes in the same conversation as your De Bruyne, as your Lukaku, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, when you see Salah play, when you see De Bruyne play, there's a part of you not be like, not almost we failed them, but like there was something there that it's
De Bruyne, not Salah, De Bruyne.
Really?
So even your point is fell down because the same Chelsea fans saying that it doesn't.
Salah was never. I can never claim Salah. I can never claim Salah because we literally bought him because he balled out against us and then decided not to play him. So like Salah was never really a Chelsea player. Like he played 13.
But he was though because he signed for Chelsea.
So based on that logic, like Wilfried Zaha is not considered a Man United flop then?
He's actually not. Like because think about it. He didn't get sold because of his performances. He got sold because the manager that bought him left.
But at the same time, like he obviously didn't do enough in training to get into the first team. Like, but listen, guys, we can. It's an interest. Yeah, okay, but we don't know half the things we say as fans. That means literally most of our opinions have got to stop because we don't know half the things we talk about. Like it's a madness, bro. No, of course, Daniel does. Listen, I hear you, bro. Listen, of course, we are powered by Bet Victor on the Football Terrace, and I wanted to put this up on the screen now because I want to share this. We are talking Mo Salah. We know that Mo Salah is having a really, really good season as it stands right now. He's absolutely killing it. These are the latest odds with Bet Victor. The link is inside the description below. So go and sign up now for your account. If you bet £5 when you first open the account, you get a £30 free bet. If you also check out their loyalty page, there's lots of offers for existing users as well. So keep supporting the Football Terrace. And of course, always gamble responsibly. But Mo Salah's still not favourite to be player of the season with Bet Victor. He's there at 6-1 as it stands right now. Cristiano Ronaldo in at 4-1. We are talking Cristiano Ronaldo very soon. Bruno at 8-1 there, as you can see. Man like Big 4-4, no safety. Lukaku 8-1. From your point of view, Kobe, do you think who do you think is tracking towards being the player of the season as it stands right now?
For me, it's definitely Salah. As it stands, I think his output already has been absolutely incredible. I think his all-round performance has been improving as well. I think over the last few years, you'd hear so many Liverpool fans actually sort of criticise him quite a lot, even when he was scoring 20 goals a season, and actually saying that they'd be more gutted if Sadio Mane left, Fabinho left, or whatever. He actually got a bit of a hard rep. But I think it speaks volumes that a lot of these Liverpool fans who watch every single minute of his football really praising his creativity, his passing, his defensive work as well. So I don't think it's just the top line stats. I think he's got 6 goals already. I think his all-round game is really reminiscent of 2017-18 when he was competing for the Ballon d'Or. So I think it's got to be him. It's the boring answer, but he's tracking for an incredible